I never thought the end of my life as a respected father in American soccer would begin with 3 quiet minutes in a locker room. 3 minutes that cost me everything I had poured into my only son for 22 years. When I walked into the visitors' locker room at CenturyLink Field after the Seattle Sounders preseason friendly, I was still carrying the duffel bag with the custom cleats I had flown in from Germany the week before. $1,400 worth, hand-stitched with his name and the number 10 he had begged me to fight for. My bank statement from the previous month showed $47,200 transferred to his account in the last 14 months alone. Rent in the team condo, the leased Range Rover, the private speed coach in Miami, the nutritionist, the lawyer who fixed his agent contract, even the $9,800 down payment on the engagement ring for his girlfriend Kayla. I kept every receipt. I always did. I expected to find my boy, Ethan Caldwell, 24 years old, rising star of the USL Championship, celebrating the 2-1 win he had sealed with a 78th-minute rocket from outside the box. Instead, I heard his voice, low and sharp, cutting through the steam and the clatter of lockers. "Tell the old man to stay in the hotel tonight. I don't need him in the family suite. We're doing the sponsor dinner with Kayla's parents only. Special people only, you know how it is." A teammate laughed. Another one muttered, "Bro, your dad paid for the whole damn trip." Ethan's reply came without hesitation. "Yeah, well, walking ATM doesn't get a seat at the table anymore. He's been embarrassing me since the academy days, always hovering, always asking coaches for updates like I'm still 12. Tonight, I want to look like a man who built this myself." 3 minutes. That's how long I stood frozen behind the half-open door, phone still recording the team group chat audio he had accidentally left playing on speaker. 3 minutes that turned every sacrifice into a ledger of betrayal written in my own handwriting. I didn't storm in. I didn't shout. I simply closed the door, walked back down the concrete corridor, and made the first call that would change everything. My name is Richard Caldwell. I am 68 years old. And this is the story of how I stopped being my son's personal bank and started becoming the man who made him regret every dollar he ever took. I never thought the end of my life as a respected father in American soccer would begin with 3 quiet minutes in a locker room. 3 minutes that cost me everything I had poured into my only son for 22 years. When I walked into the visitors' locker room at CenturyLink Field after the Seattle Sounders preseason friendly, I was still carrying the duffel bag with the custom cleats I had flown in from Germany the week before. $1,400 worth, hand-stitched with his name and the number 10 he had begged me to fight for. My bank statement from the previous month showed $47,200 transferred to his account in the last 14 months alone. Rent in the team condo, the leased Range Rover, the private speed coach in Miami, the nutritionist, the lawyer who fixed his agent contract, even the $9,800 down payment on the engagement ring for his girlfriend Kayla. I kept every receipt. I always did. I expected to find my boy, Ethan Caldwell, 24 years old, rising star of the USL Championship, celebrating the 2-1 win he had sealed with a 78th-minute rocket from outside the box. Instead, I heard his voice, low and sharp, cutting through the steam and the clatter of lockers. "Tell the old man to stay in the hotel tonight. I don't need him in the family suite. We're doing the sponsor dinner with Kayla's parents only. Special people only, you know how it is." A teammate laughed. Another one muttered, "Bro, your dad paid for the whole damn trip." Ethan's reply came without hesitation. "Yeah, well, walking ATM doesn't get a seat at the table anymore. He's been embarrassing me since the academy days, always hovering, always asking coaches for updates like I'm still 12. Tonight, I want to look like a man who built this myself." 3 minutes. That's how long I stood frozen behind the half-open door, phone still recording the team group chat audio he had accidentally left playing on speaker. 3 minutes that turned every sacrifice into a ledger of betrayal written in my own handwriting. I didn't storm in. I didn't shout. I simply closed the door, walked back down the concrete corridor, and made the first call that would change everything. My name is Richard Caldwell, I am 68 years old. And this is the story of how I stopped being my son's personal bank and started becoming the man who made him regret every dollar he ever took. The Uber dropped me at the team hotel 20 minutes later. I sat in the back seat replaying the recording on my phone, volume low, watching the Seattle lights streak past the window. Ethan's voice sounded so confident, so rehearsed, like he had practiced the line in the mirror. Special people only. The same phrase his mother used to use when she left us for her new family in 2009. History repeating itself, with my money as the only constant. I had raised him alone after she walked out. I was the one who worked double shifts at the auto plant in Detroit, then moved us to California when he got into the LA Galaxy Academy at 14. I sold my 401k to pay for flights to every tournament. I slept in the car outside hotels so he could have the team room. When he tore his ACL at 19, I cashed out the last of my late wife's life insurance to get him the best surgeon in Vail. The doctor said 6 to 9 months. He was back on the pitch in 4 because I paid for the experimental stem cell protocol that wasn't covered by insurance. $312,000. That was the running total I had calculated on the plane ride out here, not including the emotional labor, the nights I sat in emergency rooms, the times I told my own brothers I couldn't attend their weddings because Ethan had a showcase. I had become the invisible architect of his career, and tonight he had decided the architect no longer deserved credit. At the hotel, I went straight to my room on the 8th floor, the one I had booked and paid for next to his so I could be close, in case anything happened. I opened my laptop, logged into the joint account I still co-signed for his car and the condo utilities, and froze every outgoing transfer. Then I opened the separate investment account where I had been quietly parking money for his future, $187,000 in index funds, and a small soccer academy startup fund I had been building in his name. I changed the beneficiary to my own revocable trust and removed his name entirely. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I called my lawyer, Margaret Klein, in Chicago. She had handled my divorce and my will for 15 years. It was 11:47 p.m. in Seattle, but she answered on the second ring, like she had been waiting. "Richard, talk to me." I played her the recording. I read her the bank statements I had photographed on my phone. I told her about the $47,200 in the last 14 months and the cumulative $312,000 since he turned 18. Margaret listened without interrupting, then spoke in that calm, procedural voice I had come to trust. "First, we treat this as potential elder financial exploitation, even though you're not technically elderly yet. The pattern of coercion, the public humiliation, the use of family pressure, all documented. We freeze everything you still control. Tomorrow morning, I'll file the necessary paperwork to remove him as an authorized user on every account. I'll also prepare a demand letter for repayment of all non-gift transfers. We'll classify the majority as loans with promissory notes he never signed, but that we can argue under unjust enrichment." She paused. "And Richard, you're going to need to decide how far you want to go, because once we start, he will fight dirty. They always do when the money tap turns off." I looked at the framed photo on the nightstand. Ethan at 16, holding his first professional contract. My arm around his shoulders, both of us grinning like the future was guaranteed. "I want every cent back that I can legally recover," I said. "And I want him to understand that respect isn't something you buy with someone else's retirement." Margaret exhaled. "Understood. I'll have the first documents ready by 9 a.m. Pacific. Get some sleep if you can. You're about to become the villain in his story. Make sure you're the one writing the ending." I hung up and sat in the dark for a long time, listening to the muffled sounds of the team celebrating somewhere down the hall. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Dad, you still up? Sponsor thing ran late. See you at breakfast?" I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then I turned the phone face down and went to bed. The next morning, I was already in the lobby when the team came down for the team bus to the airport. Ethan spotted me immediately. He was wearing the new watch I had bought him for Christmas. $2,300, engraved on the back with his initials and the date he scored his first professional goal. "Dad, you missed a hell of a night. Kayla's parents loved the private box. You should have come." I kept my voice even. "I heard you had special people only." He laughed, the same easy laugh that used to melt my heart. Come on, you know how these sponsor things are. Next time. There won't be a next time, Ethan. The smile faltered. What? I handed him the single sheet of paper Margaret had emailed me at 6 a.m. A formal notice that all financial support was terminated effective immediately, that any outstanding loans would be called due within 30 days, and that further contact regarding money would be handled exclusively through counsel. He scanned it, confusion turning to anger in real time. You're joking. This is because of last night? Dad, it was just locker room talk. Guys say stupid shit. I looked him straight in the eye, the same eyes I had seen in the mirror for 68 years. 3 minutes, Ethan. 3 minutes was all it took for me to hear exactly who you've become. The money stops today. The car lease, the condo, the credit cards, the academy fund, everything. You're on your own. Kayla appeared behind him, her designer bag swinging. Mr. Caldwell, what's going on? We have the engagement party planned for next month. You promised to cover the venue. I looked at her, then back at my son. Special people only, right? Congratulations on the wedding. I hope the two of you figure out how to pay for it without my checkbook. Ethan's face went pale, then flushed red. Teammates were starting to notice. Phones were coming out. Dad, you can't do this. I'm your son. I picked up my own bag, the one I had carried for years containing everything he needed before every match. You stopped being my son the moment you decided I wasn't special enough to sit at your table. Now you get to learn what it feels like when the table disappears. I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard his voice rising, the panic cracking through the bravado. Dad, wait! We need to talk about this! I didn't stop. Outside, the Seattle rain had started. I flagged a cab to the airport and booked a one-way ticket home to Chicago. On the plane, I opened my notebook and started a new page. Title, Operation Reclaim. Below it, the first line, Step 1, secure all assets. Step 2, document every transfer with dates, amounts, and context. Step 3, prepare for the counterattack. I closed the notebook and looked out at the clouds. For the first time in 22 years, the weight on my shoulders felt lighter. The war had just begun. The flight back to Chicago gave me 5 quiet hours to turn rage into paperwork. I opened my laptop at 35,000 feet and started building the file Margaret would need. Every bank transfer since Ethan turned 18. Every Venmo request labeled emergency that was really for bottle service or new tattoos. Every credit card statement where I had paid the minimum while he posted Instagram stories from rooftop clubs in LA. I scanned receipts for the $1,400 cleats, the $9,800 ring deposit, the $18,500 for his agent's success fee that somehow never produced an MLS contract. By the time we landed at O'Hare, I had a 47-page PDF labeled Caldwell v. Caldwell, Financial History 2018 to 2026. Margaret met me at a quiet diner near her office in the Loop. She was already on her second coffee, reading glasses perched on her nose. Richard, this is textbook elder exploitation, even if you're only 68. The pattern of entitlement, the public humiliation captured on recording, the sudden cutoff threats when you tried to set boundaries before, this all strengthens our position. We're filing today to remove him as authorized user on every account still in your name. We're also sending a formal demand letter for $312,400 in documented transfers we can argue were loans, not gifts. She slid a fresh stack of documents across the table. Sign here, here, and initial every page of the ledger. Tomorrow, we change the locks on the Chicago condo you still co-own and freeze the Academy Startup Fund. If he fights, we go to small claims first, then civil court for unjust enrichment. And Richard, if he tries the mental decline angle, we already have your recent physical and cognitive baseline from your executive physical last month. Clean bill of health. I signed without hesitation. The pen felt heavier than any contract I had ever signed for him. That same afternoon, I drove to the Southside condo I had bought in 2021, so Ethan would have a real home base between seasons. The building manager, Mr. Alvarez, had known me for years. I handed him the new keys and the court-ordered notice Margaret had prepared. "Mr. Caldwell, you sure about this? Your son still has stuff inside. He can arrange a supervised pickup through my lawyer. No one enters without my written permission or a police escort. Change the locks today." Alvarez nodded slowly. "Been watching how he treats you when he comes by. Never liked it. Locks will be done by 5 p.m. I stood in the empty parking lot for a long minute, staring at the unit on the third floor where I had spent so many nights cooking meals he barely touched. Then I drove to my own modest two-bedroom in Lincoln Park, the one I had kept after selling the big house to fund his academy fees. For the first time in years, the silence inside felt like peace instead of absence. My phone started exploding before I even took my coat off. "Ethan. Dad, this is insane. Call me right now." "Mr. Caldwell, we have deposits due. This is cruel." "This is Ethan's agent. We need to discuss the implications for his career." "Dad, it's me again. I'm sorry about the locker room. I was pissed after the game. Please." I forwarded every message to Margaret and turned the phone to silent. Then I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and wrote the first boundary in black ink. Rule number 1. All communication about money goes through counsel only. Rule number 2. No unannounced visits. Rule number 3. Any attempt to involve third parties, teammates, sponsors, media, will be met with documented legal response. I posted the rules on the fridge like a contract with myself. The first counterattack came at 7:12 p.m. A knock at my door. Through the peephole, I saw Ethan and Kayla standing in the hallway, both looking like they had driven straight from the airport. Ethan's eyes were red. Kayla clutched a Starbucks cup like a shield. I opened the door but left the chain on. "Dad, let us in. We can fix this. I'm not discussing finances tonight. You have my lawyer's contact. Use it." Kayla's voice rose. "We already put down $12,000 on the venue. The wedding is in 6 weeks. You can't just pull the rug out." I looked at my son, the boy I had carried on my shoulders at every youth tournament, the man who had just called me a walking ATM in front of his teammates. 6 weeks ago, you told me the wedding would be small and intimate. Last night, you made it clear I'm not special enough to attend. Now you expect me to write another check? The math doesn't add up anymore, Ethan. He slammed his palm against the door frame. "This is my career. Sponsors are already asking questions. If word gets out that my own father cut me off, it looks bad." I kept my voice flat, the way Margaret coached me. "Then perhaps you should have thought about that before humiliating me on a hot mic. Good night." I closed the door. The chain rattled. On the other side, Ethan's voice cracked into something ugly. "You're going to regret this, old man. I'll make sure everyone knows what a controlling bastard you really are." I leaned my forehead against the wood and listened to their footsteps retreat down the hall. Then I walked to my laptop and opened the voice memo app. I narrated the entire encounter with date, time, exact words, and my emotional state. Margaret had said every incident needed to be logged. This was incident number 1. The next morning, Margaret called at 8:03 a.m. "Richard, they lawyered up faster than I expected. Ethan's new attorney sent a cease and desist demanding you continue support or face a claim of intentional infliction of emotional distress. They're also threatening to go public with a family estrangement narrative." I laughed once, short and cold. "Let them. I have the locker room recording, bank statements, and witnesses from the building manager. What's our next move?" "Today we file the petition to formally terminate any financial obligations and seek repayment. I also suggest we retain a forensic accountant to trace every dollar. And Richard, one more thing. Your son just posted a vague Instagram story, 'When family shows their true colors.' Already got 40,000 views in 2 hours. We need to get ahead of the narrative." I opened Instagram on my rarely used account. Sure enough, Ethan's story was a black screen with white text. Comments were flooding in. teammates, academy kids, even a few low-level MLS players offering support. The court of public opinion was already tilting. I called Margaret back. Draft a statement. Short, factual, no emotion. After years of unconditional financial support totaling over $300,000, I have made the difficult decision to end all further assistance. Any future communication will be handled through legal counsel. Attach the redacted ledger summary. Post it on my own account and send it to every outlet that reaches out. She hesitated half a second. That's aggressive. That's procedural. He wanted special people only. Now he gets to live in the world he created. By noon, my statement was live. Within an hour, the comments under Ethan's story flipped. Former teammates started tagging me with messages like, "Mr. C always had our backs too." One academy coach I hadn't spoken to in years texted, "Heard what happened. Want me to go on record about how many times you paid for kids whose parents couldn't?" I didn't answer yet. I was too busy on the phone with the bank, finalizing the freeze on the last joint accounts. That evening, the doorbell rang again. This time, it was two of Ethan's closest teammates, Marcus and Diego, looking uncomfortable in hoodies and team sweats. "Mr. Caldwell, can we talk? Ethan's spiraling. He's saying you're trying to ruin his career." I invited them in, but kept it brief. I played the 3-minute locker room recording on my phone. Their faces changed. Marcus rubbed his neck. "Damn, he said that?" Diego nodded slowly. "We thought it was just talk. He's been stressing about money lately. Said you were slowing down the support." I looked at both of them. I was never obligated to fund two grown adults. If he wants a career, he can build it without my retirement. If either of you need anything, real help, not handouts, my door is open, but the bank is closed. They left quieter than they arrived. The next 48 hours became a blur of legal filings and quiet victories. Margaret secured a temporary restraining order on the Chicago condo after Ethan tried to have a locksmith let him in to retrieve personal items. The building manager's body cam footage of the attempt became Exhibit A. The forensic accountant delivered her preliminary report. $312,400 in traceable transfers, of which $189,000 showed clear patterns of coercion, late-night texts, guilt trips about ruining my dream, screenshots of luxury purchases immediately after I sent money. On day 5, Ethan's lawyer requested mediation. Margaret advised against it, but said we could use it to force a repayment schedule on the record. We met in a neutral conference room downtown. Ethan arrived with Kayla and his attorney, a slick guy in a navy suit who looked like he billed by the minute. The mediator opened the floor. Ethan went first, voice thick with rehearsed sincerity. "Dad, I was an idiot in the locker room. I was frustrated after the game. I love you. I just want things back to normal." I slid the repayment spreadsheet across the table. Normal is over. Here's what normal cost me. Sign a promissory note for the $312,400 at 4% interest, payable over 5 years, or we go to civil court. Your choice. His lawyer started to object. I cut him off with the same calm I used on the plant floor for 30 years. I have the recording. I have the bank records. I have witnesses who watched me drain my savings while Ethan posted photos from clubs. The only question is whether your client wants this in open court or settled quietly. Kayla whispered something in Ethan's ear. His jaw tightened. "You're really doing this to your own son?" I leaned forward, voice low but clear. "No, Ethan. You did this when you decided your father wasn't special enough to sit at the table he paid for. Now you get to learn what life looks like when the table is gone." The mediator called a short break. When we returned, Ethan's lawyer proposed $50,000 immediate repayment and $2,000 monthly thereafter. Margaret countered with $150,000 up front and $4,000 monthly. After 2 hours of back and forth, we settled on $120,000 within 30 days and $3,500 monthly for 4 years, secured by a lien on the Range Rover. As we stood to leave, Ethan blocked my path. "This isn't over, Dad. You think you can just erase me?" I looked at the young man I had once carried through airports, the one whose dreams I had mistaken for my own legacy. You were never mine to erase, son. You were always supposed to stand on your own feet. I just stopped carrying you. I walked out of the mediation room without looking back. That night I sat on my balcony overlooking Lincoln Park, a cold beer in my hand, the first one I had allowed myself in months. My phone buzzed with a single text from an unknown number. It was Marcus, the teammate. Just wanted you to know, half the locker room heard the recording now. A lot of guys are rethinking how they treat their own parents. Respect, Mr. C. I didn't reply. I simply raised the bottle toward the city lights and took a long, slow sip. For the first time in 22 years, the only name on my financial statements was mine. The reclamation had officially begun. The next 30 days became a masterclass in procedural detachment. Every morning I woke at 5:30 a.m., made black coffee, and reviewed the previous day's legal updates from Margaret. The $120,000 lump sum payment deadline loomed like a referee's whistle. Ethan missed the first wire transfer by 4 days. Margaret filed the notice of default the same afternoon. By day 9, the Range Rover was repossessed from the team parking lot in Tacoma. Video footage showed Ethan arguing with the tow driver while teammates filmed on their phones. The clip made its way to a soccer podcast. Comments split exactly as expected. Half called me heartless, the other half started sharing their own walking ATM dad stories. I stayed silent. No interviews, no social media clapbacks, just the quiet accumulation of paper. On day 14, Margaret called with the first real escalation. They've countersued in Cook County for breach of familial duty and are seeking an emergency hearing to freeze your remaining assets pending a competency evaluation. Their filing claims your sudden cutoff shows paranoid delusions and irrational financial behavior after years of stable support. They attached affidavits from 2 teammates who claim you obsessively tracked every dollar, and from Kayla saying you once threatened to disown Ethan if he didn't score in a specific game. I laughed once, dry and short. They're trying the elder abuse in reverse playbook. Exactly, but we have your executive physical from March. Cognitive tests, financial literacy questionnaire, clean psychiatric clearance. We also have the locker room recording time-stamped and authenticated by a forensic audio expert. I've already filed our opposition with a motion to dismiss and a request for sanctions against their attorney for frivolous filing. She paused. Richard, they're also shopping the story to local sports media. A reporter from the Tribune left a message. Want me to handle it? Tell them the facts only, no emotion. Offer the redacted ledger and the recording transcript. Let the numbers speak. The hearing was set for the following Tuesday in a small courtroom on the 6th floor of the Daly Center. I wore the same dark gray suit I had bought for Ethan's first professional signing. Margaret sat beside me at the plaintiff's table, folders stacked like defensive walls. Ethan and Kayla arrived with their attorney and a surprise. Dr. Alan Voss, a psychiatrist they had paid to write a 3-page letter claiming acute estrangement trauma had caused Ethan severe anxiety affecting his on-field performance. The judge, an older woman named Honorable Patricia Lang, scanned the filings with the bored expression of someone who had seen every version of family money wars. Their attorney opened with theatrical flair. Your Honor, my client has been financially and emotionally abandoned by the only parent he has left. Mr. Caldwell Sr. has unilaterally cut off all support after years of voluntary contributions totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars. This abrupt action has left a promising young athlete unable to meet basic living expenses and has triggered a mental health crisis. We ask the court to appoint a temporary guardian, or at minimum, freeze Mr. Caldwell's liquid assets until a full competency hearing can be held. Margaret stood before the echo died. Your Honor, this is not abandonment. This is a 68-year-old man exercising his absolute right to stop funding 2 able-bodied adults who have treated him as a walking ATM. We have bank records showing $312,400 transferred since the respondent turned 18. We have a recorded statement in which the respondent referred to his father as not special enough to attend a sponsor dinner he himself paid for. We have affidavits from building management and teammates confirming years of entitled behavior. Mr. Caldwell's recent medical evaluation confirms full mental and financial capacity. The petitioners are attempting to weaponize the court system to continue extracting money they are not legally entitled to. Judge Lang looked over her glasses at Ethan. Mr. Caldwell, Jr., did you in fact make the statement captured on the recording about special people only? Ethan shifted. It was taken out of context, Your Honor. Locker room talk. Locker room talk that was accidentally broadcast on speaker while your father stood outside the door? She turned to their psychiatrist. Dr. Voss, did you personally evaluate Mr. Caldwell, Sr.? No, Your Honor. The opinion is based on collateral information provided by the family. Judge Lang's pen tapped once. Motion for competency evaluation? Denied. Motion to freeze assets? Denied. The court finds no evidence of incapacity. Counsel for petitioners, I strongly suggest you advise your clients against further frivolous filings. This matter is dismissed with prejudice on the emergency relief requested. Any repayment issues will proceed through civil channels already filed. She banged the gavel. The sound was softer than I expected, but it felt like a starting pistol. Outside in the marble hallway, Ethan tried one last approach while Margaret was speaking with the clerk. He stepped close, voice low and urgent. Dad, please. The team is talking about cutting my minutes if the drama keeps up. Kayla's parents are threatening to pull the wedding deposit. I'm begging you. I looked at the young man whose diapers I had changed, whose first goal I had filmed on a cracked iPhone. Begging is new. Usually you just send a text with a sad emoji and a dollar amount. The answer is still no. Pay what you owe, or face the lien on the car and the judgment. Your life, your choices. Kayla grabbed his arm. You're going to let him destroy us? I answered before Ethan could. I didn't destroy anything. You both built this moment the day you decided my presence was optional, but my money was mandatory. Security was already watching. I turned and walked toward the elevators with Margaret. Behind me, I heard Ethan's voice crack into something raw. I hate you. The words should have hurt. Instead, they landed like rain on a roof I had finally repaired. That evening, I met my old friend Leon at a quiet bar on Clark Street. Leon had coached youth soccer with me for 15 years before retiring to run a small academy on the north side. He slid a pint across the table. Heard about the hearing. Whole soccer community is buzzing. Some parents are calling you a hero. Others say you're cold. I took a long sip. I'm neither. I'm just a man who finally read the balance sheet of his own life. Leon leaned in. You know he's been calling around trying to get former academy kids to sign statements about how controlling you were. Most of them are refusing. One kid, remember Jamal? Told me Ethan tried to offer him $500 to lie. Jamal recorded the call. I raised an eyebrow. Margaret would love that. The real shift came 10 days later. The $120,000 wire finally hit my account at 9:47 a.m. on a Thursday. Margaret confirmed it was clean. I immediately transferred $40,000 into a new, irrevocable trust for my own future travel and hobbies, things I had postponed for 2 decades. The rest went into high-yield savings while we waited on the monthly payments. That same afternoon, Ethan's agent called Margaret, requesting a meeting to discuss image rehabilitation. We agreed to a Zoom the following week. On the call, the agent looked exhausted. Mr. Caldwell, the locker room audio leaked wider. Sponsors are nervous. The USL is asking questions. Ethan's minutes are down. He's willing to issue a public apology if you'll quietly resume some support and help smooth things over with the league. I kept my face neutral on camera. The apology is between him and me. The money is not negotiable. He owes $3,500 every month for the next 48 months. Miss one, the judgment accelerates. As for smoothing things over, tell him to play well and act like an adult. That usually works. The agent sighed. You're really not bending. I bent for 22 years. The bending is over. 2 weeks after that, the first monthly payment cleared on time. $3,500. No note, no apology, just the wire. I celebrated by booking a solo trip to Lisbon in October, tickets to 3 Primeira Liga matches, and a week with no one to answer to. For the first time in decades, my calendar belonged to me. But Ethan wasn't finished. On a rainy Sunday night, my doorbell rang at 11:20 p.m. Through the peephole, I saw him, alone, soaked, hoodie up, eyes hollow. No Kayla, no entourage. I opened the door but stayed in the frame. "Dad, I'm losing the starting spot. The coach pulled me aside after training today. Said the off-field drama is affecting the locker room. I need help, just enough to get through the season. I'll pay it back, I swear." I studied the rain dripping from his hood onto my welcome mat, the same mat he used to wipe his cleats on when he was 10. "Help is what I gave you for 22 years. What you need now is consequences. Go home, Ethan. Pay your bills. Show up to training on time. Grow up." His shoulders sagged. For a moment, the bravado cracked, and I saw the scared kid underneath. "I don't know how to do this without you." "That's the problem," I said quietly. "You never learned because I never let you. Tonight, that changes." I closed the door gently. Through the wood, I heard a single sob, then footsteps retreating down the stairs. The next morning, Margaret forwarded an email from Ethan's new counsel. They were requesting a modification of the repayment schedule, citing changed financial circumstances. Attached was a pay stub showing reduced salary and a letter from the team's general manager about performance concerns linked to personal issues. Margaret's note was short. "They're testing boundaries again. Recommend we deny and prepare to accelerate the full judgment if they default." I typed one line back. "Deny. No further modifications. Enforce strictly." That afternoon, I drove to the small storage unit I had rented after clearing out the old family house. Inside were boxes of trophies, old game balls, scrapbooks I had kept for Ethan's future children. I opened one box and pulled out a photo of us at his first MLS tryout. Me grinning, arm around his shoulders, both of us believing the dream was ours. I didn't cry. I simply placed the photo face down in a new box labeled Archive, Closed Chapter. Then I closed the storage unit, drove home, and opened my laptop to research soccer academies in Portugal. I had an idea for a small scholarship fund, money that would go directly to kids whose parents couldn't afford cleats or travel, with one condition. The parents had to attend at least one training session per month. No walking ATMs allowed. The fund would be named after my late wife, not Ethan. Her name deserved to live on in something clean. As summer turned to fall, the monthly wires continued, sometimes on the 1st, sometimes on the 3rd, never with a message. Ethan's Instagram went quiet on personal posts. Team accounts showed him coming off the bench more often. Kayla's ring was still on her finger in the few photos that surfaced, but the wedding venue deposit story disappeared from gossip pages. I flew to Lisbon as planned. Sat in the stands at Estadio da Luz, ate pastéis de nata by the river, and for 7 straight days answered exactly 0 texts about money. On the flight home, I opened my notebook to a fresh page. New ledger. Income, freedom. Expenses, 0 guilt. Balance, mine. Below it, I wrote the final rule. Rule number 4. The past is paid for. The future is no longer for sale. When I landed at O'Hare, a single text waited from an unknown number. It was Ethan. "Coach says I'm starting this weekend. First time in 2 months. Just wanted you to know." I read it twice, then typed 4 words and hit send. Play like you earned it. No heart emoji, no proud of you. Just the truth he had spent 22 years avoiding. I turned my phone off for the rest of the night and slept better than I had since he was a boy. The reclamation was no longer beginning. It was complete. The weeks after Lisbon settled into a rhythm I had forgotten existed. My rhythm. Mornings began with a run along the lakefront, No duffel bag of cleats to drop off, no panicked 6 a.m. texts from Ethan about a forgotten payment for turf time. I returned to an apartment that smelled only of coffee and the newspaper I now read cover to cover. The $3,500 wires arrived like clockwork on the 2nd or 3rd of every month, sometimes with a one-line note from his lawyer. Payment received per agreement. Never from Ethan himself. That silence spoke louder than any apology. Margaret checked in every 10 days with clinical updates. The lien on the Range Rover had been satisfied after the lump sum. The remaining balance stood at $192,000. Ethan's USL club had reduced his guaranteed salary by 25%, citing off-field conduct. But he was starting again. 12 appearances, 3 goals, 1 assist. The numbers were decent, not stardom. For the first time in his life, he was earning what the market actually valued him at, not what I had artificially inflated. Then came the call I had half expected. It was a Tuesday evening in late October. I was slicing vegetables for a stir-fry when my phone rang. Margaret's direct line. "Richard, we have a new filing. Ethan and Kayla have petitioned family court for an emergency order requiring you to resume reasonable parental support until the wedding. They claim the repayment schedule is causing undue hardship and that your refusal to attend pre-wedding events constitutes emotional abandonment. They attached bank statements showing their combined income is now only $68,000 a year after his pay cut, and wedding vendors are threatening to cancel." I set the knife down. "They're still trying the hardship angle after I documented $312,000? Exactly. The judge assigned is new, Honorable Marcus Reeves. He's tough on financial manipulation cases, but soft on family values. Their attorney is painting you as a wealthy retiree hoarding money while your only son struggles. We need to appear in 2 weeks. I've already pulled your full ledger, the Lisbon trip receipts showing discretionary spending on yourself, and affidavits from 3 former academy parents who watched you cover costs for other kids while Ethan demanded more." I exhaled slowly. "What's the strategy?" "Same as always. Facts, documents, no theatrics. We counter with a motion to enforce the existing civil judgment and request attorney fees for defending another frivolous family court action. If the judge leans emotional, we play the authenticated locker room recording in open court. Let the words walking ATM and special people only land in front of a stenographer." The hearing was set for November 12th at 9 a.m. I arrived early, carrying the same gray suit and a thicker folder. Ethan and Kayla sat on the opposite side, wearing matching navy outfits that looked chosen for sympathy. Kayla's eyes were puffy. Ethan stared at the table like a man who had rehearsed his lines until they lost meaning. Judge Reeves entered, scanned the docket, and opened without pleasantries. "Petitioners seek court-ordered parental support beyond the existing civil repayment agreement. Respondent argues the request is duplicative and abusive. Counsel, proceed." Their attorney stood. "Your Honor, my clients are facing imminent financial collapse. The wedding, already scaled back, is in 4 weeks. Deposits will be forfeited. Mr. Caldwell Sr. has the means. He spent decades voluntarily supporting his son's career. To cut him off now, on the eve of marriage, is punitive." Margaret countered before the echo faded. "Your Honor, the civil court has already adjudicated this matter. A judgment exists for repayment. Petitioners now forum shop in family court to extract additional funds. Mr. Caldwell Sr. is 68, retired on a fixed pension and modest savings. He is not obligated to fund adult children's lifestyle or wedding. We submit the full financial history, the recorded statement in which the petitioner referred to his father as not special enough, and evidence that petitioners have continued luxury spending, new engagement photo shoots, a $4,200 honeymoon suite deposit, while claiming hardship." Judge Reeves leaned forward. "Mr. Caldwell Jr., you signed the promissory note?" Ethan nodded stiffly. "Yes, sir, but things changed. My salary was cut. We're drowning." The judge turned to me. "Mr. Caldwell Sr., anything you'd like to add before I rule?" I stood. My voice stayed level, the same tone I once used on the plant floor when machines broke down. "Your Honor, I raised my son alone after his mother left. I funded every dream he voiced. When he called me a walking ATM in front of his teammates and excluded me from events I paid for, I drew a line. That line is documented. I will honor the repayment schedule we already agreed upon. I will not be ordered to give more. If that makes me heartless in this courtroom, so be it. But I refuse to teach my son that love can be extorted indefinitely. The judge studied the recording transcript Margaret had highlighted. His expression hardened. Petition denied. The existing civil judgment stands. Any further attempts to relitigate this in family court will result in sanctions. Counsel for petitioners, you are walking a thin line. Court is adjourned. Ethan's shoulders slumped. Kayla whispered something sharp in his ear. As we filed out, he caught me in the hallway, voice low and broken. Dad, the wedding is December 10th. Kayla's parents are furious. They expected you to cover half. Just show up. For appearances. I won't ask for money. I looked at the man who used to run into my arms after every goal. Appearances are what got us here. If you want me at the wedding, send the invitation through normal mail like any other guest. If I come, it will be as Richard Caldwell, not as the open wallet. Decide what you actually want. He nodded once, eyes wet, and walked away with Kayla tugging his sleeve. The invitation arrived by USPS 6 days later. Simple cream card, no gold foil, no request for funds. I set it on the kitchen counter and left it there for a week while I thought. On December 8th, I made my decision. I booked a one-night stay at the same downtown hotel where the reception would be held, paid for with my own card. No gifts, no speeches, just presents, if I chose. December 10th arrived cold and bright. I wore a charcoal suit, no tie, and drove to the venue, a mid-tier ballroom in the West Loop that looked scaled back from whatever original plan they had pitched me months earlier. I sat in the back row of the ceremony space. Ethan spotted me during the processional. His eyes widened, then softened. Kayla glanced over once, her smile tight. The vows were standard. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, the room stayed silent. I kept my hands folded. At the reception, I stood near the bar with a single glass of sparkling water. A few of Ethan's teammates nodded respectfully. One, Marcus, came over. Mr. C, glad you came. He's been different since the hearing. Quieter. Pays his own tab now. I shrugged. That was the point. Ethan found me during the father-son dance segment that never happened. He approached alone, hands in pockets. You came. I said I might. He swallowed. I know I don't deserve it, but thank you for showing up without writing a check. I studied him. Thinner, older looking at 24 than I had been at 30. You're welcome. Enjoy your night. Pay the vendors on time. I turned to leave. He caught my sleeve. Dad, the monthly payments. I'll keep making them. Even after the judgment is satisfied. Not because I owe you, because I finally get it. I looked at his hand on my arm, then at his face. Get it on the field first. Then we'll talk about the rest. I left before the cake was cut. 2 months later, on Valentine's Day, the final $3,500 cleared. The balance hit zero. Margaret sent a formal release of judgment. That same week, Ethan texted a single photo, no caption. It was a bank statement showing his first mortgage payment on a modest one-bedroom condo in Tacoma. The down payment had come from his own savings, no cosigner. I saved the screenshot, then replied with 4 words. Proud of the effort. No hearts, no offers of help, just truth. Spring training started. Ethan's club posted a short video of him assisting the game-winning goal in the season opener. In the locker room celebration footage, he looked straight at the camera for half a second and mouthed something that looked like, for real this time. I didn't call. I didn't send money. I simply forwarded the clip to Leon with the note, Kid might be learning. Leon replied instantly. Took long enough.
You doing okay?
I looked around my quiet apartment. The new bookshelf I had bought with Lisbon money. The half-finished model ship on the dining table. The open passport on the counter with stamps from Portugal. I typed back, "Better than okay. I'm finally special to myself." The reclamation was no longer a fight. It was a life. And for the first time in 22 years, that life had my name on every line. The summer heat in Chicago wrapped around the city like a heavy press. But inside my apartment, the temperature felt just right for the first time in decades. No more emergency wire transfers at midnight. No more scanning bank apps for overdraft alerts on accounts I co-signed. The ledger was closed, the judgment satisfied, and the only name still appearing on my statements was mine. I had taken to spending mornings at a small coffee shop near the lake, reading actual newspapers instead of frantic group chats from Ethan's old academy parents. One Thursday in late June, my phone buzzed with a notification I hadn't expected. A friend request on Facebook from Kayla's mother. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, a direct message appeared. "Mr. Caldwell, this is Diane. We need to talk about the wedding photos. Ethan says you paid for the photographer originally. We're trying to get the full album, and the vendor is holding the digital files until the balance is cleared. It's only $1,800. Can you help one last time? For the kids?" I stared at the screen until the coffee went cold. Then I forwarded the message to Margaret with one line. "Another attempt. Handle per protocol." Margaret's reply came in under 5 minutes. Already drafting the cease and desist. They never learn. By afternoon, the message had been answered through counsel. Any further contact regarding money would be considered harassment and pursued under the existing judgment's enforcement clauses. Diane never wrote again. That same week, Ethan's club made the USL playoffs. I watched the first-round match on my laptop, volume low, a cold beer in hand. He started and scored in the 62nd minute, a clean strike from the edge of the box that reminded me of the boy I once filmed on cracked iPhones. The broadcast cut to a quick sideline shot of him celebrating with teammates. No glance toward the stands looking for me. No post-game text begging for celebration money. Just a man doing his job. I didn't comment on social media. I simply noted the date and the goal in my private journal, then turned the page to plan my next trip. This time to watch a few MLS matches in person, paying for my own tickets, my own hotel, my own quiet seat in the upper deck. August brought the first real test of the new boundaries. Ethan called from an unknown number at 2:17 a.m. Chicago time. I let it ring to voicemail. The message was slurred, raw, the voice of someone who had been drinking. "Dad, we lost in the semis tonight. Coach said I played like shit in the second half. Kayla's talking about postponing the honeymoon because we can't afford it. I know I said I wouldn't ask, but man, just this once. I swear it's the last time. I just need to feel like I still have a father." I listened to the message twice, then saved it as evidence and went back to sleep. The next morning, I sent a single text from my own number. "Losses happen. Hangovers don't fix them. Pay your own bills. Call your sponsor if you need PR help. I'm no longer on speed dial for emergencies." He didn't reply for 6 days. When he did, it was a short voice note, sober this time. "I get it now. I really do. The team therapist made me listen to that locker room recording again. Hearing myself say walking ATM out loud, it's ugly. I'm sorry, Dad. Not for the money, for treating you like the money was all you were good for. I'm working on the monthly payments even after the judgment is done. Not because I have to, because I want to make it right." I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I drove to the storage unit again and pulled out the last box I hadn't touched, the one with old letters Ethan had written me from academy trips when he was 15. "Dear Dad, thanks for driving all night so I could make the showcase. You're the best." The handwriting was still boyish. I folded the letter and placed it back, then locked the unit for good. In September, I flew to Austin for an MLS weekend, sat behind the goal, paid cash for a hot dog and a program, and watched a full 90 minutes without once checking my bank balance or worrying about anyone else's rent. On the flight home, I opened a new notebook and started outlining the scholarship fund I had been thinking about since Lisbon. $10,000 a year, split between 4 kids from single-parent homes in the Chicago area. Applications would require a short essay from both the player and the parent about what independence meant to them. No sob stories, no guilt, just clear-eyed plans. I named it the Caldwell Independence Fund. Not after Ethan, not after me, after the idea that had finally taken root. October brought the quietest birthday I had celebrated in 20 years. 69. I treated myself to a steak dinner at a neighborhood place I had always wanted to try but never had time for because Ethan had a match. The waiter asked if I was waiting for anyone. I smiled and said, "Just me tonight." The bill was $87. I paid it without a second thought and left a 25% tip because I finally could. 2 days later, Ethan texted a photo, a simple birthday card he had mailed, postmarked from Tacoma. Inside was a handwritten note and a money order for $500, extra, above the required monthly payment. "Happy birthday, Dad. This one's for my first endorsement check. Small, but it's mine. I'm starting to understand what you were trying to teach me. No pressure to reply. Just wanted you to know I'm still paying and I'm still trying." I deposited the money order into the scholarship fund and sent back one line. Received. Keep earning. November arrived with the first snowfall. I was in the middle of winterizing my small balcony garden when my phone rang. Margaret again. "Richard, you're not going to believe this. Ethan's attorney just filed a motion to voluntarily accelerate the remaining balance. He wants to pay off the last $41,200 in one lump sum by December 31st. They attached proof of a new league minimum contract extension and a side letter from his club confirming the raise is performance-based, not guaranteed by any third party. I set the pruning shears down. He's trying to close the book. Looks like it. We can accept or counter. My advice? Accept. Get the wire. Issue the final release. And walk away clean. I thought about it for less than a minute. Accept. Tell them the wire goes to the Caldwell Independence Fund account, not to me personally. Let him know where his last payment is actually going. Margaret chuckled. You're enjoying this more than you admit. I'm enjoying the silence. The wire cleared on December 28th, $41,200 exactly. Margaret filed the satisfaction of judgment the same day. The file was officially closed. On New Year's Eve, I sat alone in my living room with a single glass of scotch, watching the ball drop on a muted television. My phone stayed dark. No desperate texts, no emergency Venmo requests. Just the low hum of the radiator and the quiet satisfaction of a ledger balanced on my own terms. At 12:07 a.m., a single message arrived from Ethan. Happy New Year, Dad. Paid in full. Starting 2026 with no safety net and no excuses. Thank you for making me figure it out. If you ever want to grab a coffee when I'm in Chicago, no agenda. Just coffee. I read it 3 times, then typed back, Happy New Year. Coffee sounds possible. No agenda. Let me know when you're in town. I didn't add, I love you. Not yet. Some things still needed to be earned. January brought the first scholarship recipients, 4 14-year-old boys and girls from the south and west sides. I attended the small ceremony at Leon's Academy, shook their hands, and listened while each parent spoke about what the money meant. Cleats that fit, travel money that didn't require selling plasma, the simple relief of not having to choose between rent and their kid's dream. One mother pulled me aside afterward, eyes shining. My husband left when my boy was 6. I've been the walking ATM ever since. Watching you set boundaries, it gave me courage to do the same last month. He's mad, but he's starting to hustle. Thank you. I nodded, throat tight for the first time in months. You're welcome. Just remember, the boundary isn't the punishment. It's the lesson. February brought Ethan back to Chicago for a preseason friendly against the Fire. He texted the night before. Game at Soldier Field tomorrow. I've got 2 comp tickets if you want them. Section 112, midfield. No pressure. If you come, I'll meet you after at the South Gate. Just us. I thought about it all morning. Then I put on a Sounders away jersey I had bought myself in Seattle the year before, the one with no name on the back, and drove downtown. I sat in section 112 and watched my son play 90 full minutes without once looking for me in the crowd. He assisted the opening goal and tracked back on defense like a man who finally understood the value of his own sweat. When the final whistle blew, the Fire won 2-1, but Ethan walked off the field with his head high. I waited at the south gate as promised. He emerged 20 minutes later in a team hoodie, duffel over one shoulder, no entourage. We stood awkwardly for a moment, breath fogging in the cold night air. "You came," he said. "I did." He shifted the duffel. "I saw you in the stands. Didn't wave. Figured you wanted to watch the game, not the drama." "Good call." We walked a block to a quiet diner that stayed open late, ordered coffee and pie. No lawyers, no bank statements, just two men talking about soccer, about the weather, about nothing important for 43 minutes. Before we parted, he pulled an envelope from his pocket. Not money, just something I wrote after the final payment cleared. "Read it when you get home. No rush." I took the envelope, shook his hand, firm, dry, no begging, and watched him walk back toward the team bus. At home, I opened the letter under the kitchen light. "Dad, I used to think love was measured in what you gave me. Cleats, rent, flights, dreams. When you stopped giving, I thought you stopped loving. It took losing the starting spot, almost losing Kayla, and hearing my own voice on that recording to realize I was the one who stopped loving you right. I'm not asking for forgiveness on a timeline. I'm just saying I see it now. The way you carried me for 22 years without ever asking for a thank you. The way I treated the man who built the ladder like he was the rung. The monthly payments after the judgment? I kept making them even after it was paid off. Put them into a separate account. $3,500 a month for the last 4 months. It's $14,000 now. Not for you to spend on me. I want to give it to your scholarship fund. Anonymously if you want. Because kids shouldn't have to wonder if their parents' love has an overdraft protection. I'm not special anymore in the way I used to demand, but maybe, one day, I can earn being your son again. Not your responsibility, no pressure, just truth. Ethan. I read the letter twice, folded it carefully, and placed it in the same drawer where I kept the final satisfaction of judgment. Then I opened my laptop and added a 5th scholarship slot for the coming year, funded by the anonymous $14,000 donation that had just arrived in the fund's account. Outside, the Chicago wind howled against the windows. Inside, the apartment was warm, quiet, and entirely mine. I poured one more cup of coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and started planning the next trip, this time to watch youth tournaments in Europe, looking for the next kid who needed cleats that fit, and a parent who finally understood that love isn't a wire transfer. The walking ATM had closed for business. The man who finally owned his own life was just getting started. The spring of 2026 arrived with a softness I hadn't earned in decades. Cherry blossoms along the lakefront, longer daylight, and the quiet knowledge that no one's rent, car note, or wedding venue depended on my next bank transfer. I had turned 69 in January without a single guilt-laced voicemail. By April, I was coaching 2 evenings a week at Leon's Academy. Not for money, not for legacy, just because I still loved the smell of fresh-cut grass and the sound of cleats on turf when no one was keeping score for me. Ethan's season had steadied. He was starting regularly again, not because his father's checkbook opened doors, but because he had stopped treating every missed pass like the end of the world. The monthly $3,500 had continued voluntarily for 4 extra months after the judgment closed, then quietly stopped. In its place, small deposits began appearing in the Caldwell Independence Fund, $800 here, $1,200 there, always labeled Anonymous Player Contribution. I never asked. He never explained. The ledger between us had finally gone quiet. Then came the phone call that tested every boundary I had drawn. It was a humid Tuesday evening in early May. I was grilling salmon on the balcony when my phone rang. Ethan's real number, the one he hadn't used for emergencies in months. I answered on the 3rd ring, voice even. Ethan. Dad? His tone was tight, controlled, the way it used to sound right before he asked for another $5,000. I'm in Chicago tomorrow for a midweek friendly against Chicago FC. We fly in tonight. I need to see you. Not for money, not for the wedding pictures or anything like that. There's something I have to say in person. Can I come by the apartment after training? Alone? I watched the salmon sizzle. No panic in my chest, no mental calculation of how much this might cost. What time? Around 8:30, after recovery and media. I won't stay long. 8:30 is fine. Text when you're downstairs. I'll buzz you up. He exhaled like he had been holding his breath since takeoff. Thank you. I hung up and turned the fish. Then I opened the drawer where I kept the letter he had written on New Year's and read it again. The words still landed the same. Raw, earned, unfinished. I left it on the counter like a contract we were both still negotiating. At 8:27 p.m., the buzzer sounded. I checked the camera. Ethan, alone, wearing a plain black hoodie and jeans, duffel slung over one shoulder. No Kayla, no agent, no entourage. He looked smaller than he did on television. I buzzed him in. He stepped into the apartment and stopped just inside the door, taking in the changes. The new bookshelves, the half-built ship model on the dining table, the absence of any framed photos of him in a Sounders jersey. The silence stretched for 5 full seconds. You redecorated, he said finally. I stopped waiting for someone else to fill the walls. He nodded, swallowing. Can I sit? I gestured to the couch. He sat on the edge like he was afraid the cushions might bill him. I stayed standing by the kitchen counter, arms loose at my sides. I'm not here to ask for anything, he began. I swear, the fund got the last anonymous deposit 2 weeks ago. That's done. The team therapist has been making me do this exercise. Write down every time I treated you like an ATM instead of a father. The list is long. It's ugly. And yesterday, after we landed, I sat in my hotel room and realized I've never once said thank you without a $sign attached. He reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a small spiral notebook, the kind kids use in school. The cover was creased, pages dog-eared. I wrote it all down. Every transfer I remember. Every time I guilt-tripped you. Every time I said, special people only, or let Kayla talk about you like you were already dead and the inheritance was just delayed. I'm not asking you to read it tonight. I just wanted you to see that I finally wrote it. He placed the notebook on the coffee table between us. I didn't touch it yet. Why now? I asked. Because next month the club is offering me a 2-year extension. Guaranteed money, no performance clauses tied to my father's bank account. I turned it down until I could look you in the eye and say I earned the next chapter myself. No co-signers, no safety nets. If they pull the offer because of how I handled the last 18 months, then I'll go find the job in the USL or overseas, or wherever adults who screw up have to start over. He looked up, eyes steady for the first time in years. I don't expect you to believe me yet, but I needed you to hear it from me, in your living room, without lawyers or recordings or threats. I was wrong. I was cruel. And I'm sorry, Dad. Not because I need something, because you deserved better than a son who only called when the account was low. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator hum. I finally sat down across from him. I heard the apology, I said. I see the notebook. I see the deposits you kept making after the debt was paid. But trust isn't rebuilt in one conversation. It's rebuilt in consistent choices when no one is watching. You want a relationship with me? Show up the same way when you're winning and when you're losing. When the extension comes through and when it doesn't. When Kayla wants a bigger apartment and when the rent is due. No special treatment, no walking ATM. Just my son living like a man. He nodded slowly. I can do that. We sat in silence for another minute. Then he stood. I'll let you get back to your evening. Thank you for letting me come over. At the door, he paused. One more thing. The scholarship fund. I told the academy director I want to volunteer one afternoon a week when I'm in town, coaching the younger groups. No pay, just showing up. If that's okay with you. I studied him. The same jawline, the same eyes, but the entitlement had been sanded down by consequences. It's okay, I said, but the kids come first, not your redemption story. Understood. He left without asking for a hug. I waited until the door clicked shut, then picked up the notebook. Page after page of dated entries, amounts, contexts, and his own brutal self-assessment in the margins. Some entries made my stomach tighten. Others simply confirmed what I had already known. At the very back, in fresh ink, was a new entry dated today. May 2026. Asked to see Dad with zero financial ask. Told the truth. Left without negotiating. Felt like the first honest conversation in 10 years. I closed the notebook and placed it on the shelf next to the letter from New Year's. Not forgiven yet, but documented. That was enough for tonight. 2 weeks later, the club announced Ethan's 2-year extension. The press release mentioned personal growth and renewed focus. No mention of family drama. I watched the short video clip of him signing the contract. He looked calm, grounded, like a man who had finally read the fine print on his own life. In June, I hosted the second annual scholarship ceremony at Leon's Academy. 4 new kids, plus the original 4 returning. Ethan showed up unannounced, wearing a plain academy polo, and spent the entire afternoon running drills with the youngest group. No cameras, no sponsor logos. Just a 25-year-old man teaching proper first touch to 13-year-olds who would never know his father once paid for his entire career. After the session, one of the mothers, the same one who had thanked me last year, walked over while Ethan was putting away cones. "That your boy?" she asked quietly. I watched Ethan high-five a kid who had just nailed a pass he couldn't make 2 months ago. "He's working on it," I said. She smiled. "So are you." That night, Ethan texted a single photo. Him and 3 of the scholarship kids posing with muddy cleats and big grins. Caption: "No special people tonight, just players." I replied with one word: good. July brought my 70th birthday. I spent it on a solo fishing trip to Door County, Wisconsin, rented a small cabin, bought my own bait, caught nothing worth keeping, and slept like a man who no longer owed anyone tomorrow's sunrise. When I got home, there was a package waiting. A new pair of high-end binoculars for bird watching. No note, just a gift receipt showing Ethan had paid cash at a sporting goods store in Tacoma. I set them on the windowsill where I could see the lake. August arrived with the first hint of fall. Ethan was back in Chicago for another friendly. This time he texted 2 days in advance. "Dinner after the game? My treat. Nothing fancy, just food and whatever we feel like talking about." I agreed. We met at a small Italian place near the stadium. He paid the bill with his own card. We talked about his new defensive responsibilities, about the scholarship kids' progress, about the ship model I was finally finishing. No money, no apologies on repeat. Just 2 men learning how to sit across from each other without a ledger between them. As we walked out, he stopped under a streetlight. "I know I still have a long way to go," he said, "but I'm not the same guy who called you a walking ATM in that locker room, and I'm never going to be again." I looked at him, the adult version of the boy I had carried through airports, and felt something loosen in my chest that had been knotted for years. "I believe you're trying," I said. "Keep trying. When you've tried long enough that it becomes who you are, then we'll see about the rest." He nodded. We shook hands. He headed back to the team hotel. I walked home alone, the night air cool against my face. At the apartment, I opened the drawer one more time and looked at the notebook and the letter. Then I took out a fresh sheet of paper and wrote a single new rule at the bottom of my personal ledger. Rule number 5. Forgiveness isn't a wire transfer. It's a slow, steady deposit made in choices, not dollars. The account is still open. The balance will be what we both put in. I dated it, folded the paper, and slid it into the drawer with the others. Outside, the city lights glittered over the lake. Inside, the only name on every account, financial, emotional, future, was finally, completely mine. And for the first time in my life, that felt like the greatest victory any father could claim. The reclamation was no longer a war I had won. It was a life I had finally begun to live. The fall of 2026 brought the kind of quiet that money can never buy. Leaves turned gold along Lakeshore Drive, and for the first time in 22 years, I had no reason to check the weather in Tacoma before booking my own plans. I spent October in Tuscany, paid every euro myself, sat in small stadiums watching Serie B matches, drank cheap Chianti, and sent exactly 0 wires. My phone stayed on airplane mode for days at a time. When I landed back in Chicago, the only message waiting was a single text from Ethan. Safe flight? Saw you posted a picture from Florence. Looked peaceful. No pressure to reply. I replied 3 days later with a photo of the ship model finally finished on my dining table. Peaceful is the right word. Model done. Thanks for the binoculars. They help spot birds in the hills. No hearts, no miss you. Just facts between 2 men who were still learning the language. November brought the 3rd scholarship ceremony. 8 kids now. Ethan flew in on his own dime the night before and ran the entire session while I sat in the bleachers with a thermos of coffee. He didn't announce himself as Richard Caldwell's son. He introduced himself as Ethan, the guy who used to think the world owed him a living. One of the 13-year-olds asked him how he got so good at reading the game. Ethan glanced up at me for half a second, then looked back at the kid. Someone taught me the hard way that talent without responsibility is just expensive noise. I'm still learning that lesson. Afterward, he walked over, sweat on his forehead, grass stains on his knees. Got time for coffee tomorrow before I fly out? My treat again. I nodded. Same diner, 9 a.m. We met at the same booth. He paid. We talked about his upcoming contract negotiations, real ones this time, with agents who actually read the fine print. He told me Kayla had started working part-time at a sports clinic to help with bills. No complaints, no hints, just information. Before he left, he slid an envelope across the table. Not money, just an update. Read it whenever. Inside was a short handwritten note and a printout from his bank. Dad, the voluntary payment stopped in September because the original judgment is long satisfied, but I opened a separate account anyway. Every month I still put in what I used to owe you, $3,500. It's now at $28,000. I'm transferring the whole thing to the Independence Fund today. Not anonymous this time. I want the kids to know it came from the guy who once thought his father's retirement was an unlimited overdraft. I'm not doing it to buy forgiveness. I'm doing it because I finally understand what you were protecting when you cut me off. See you at the next ceremony. No special treatment required. Ethan. I read it twice, folded it, and put it with the others in the drawer that had slowly become our shared archive. December 2026 arrived cold and clear. Ethan's club made the USL Cup final. I watched the game on television, then bought a plane ticket with my own money and flew out for the match. I sat in the upper deck, section 217, row 12. Paid face value, no comps. When Ethan lifted the trophy after extra time, I stood and clapped like any other fan. He scanned the crowd once during the celebration. Our eyes met for maybe 2 seconds. He gave the smallest nod. I nodded back. Nothing more. After the game, I waited outside the family entrance like any other parent. He came out in a suit, trophy still in his hands. Kayla beside him, looking proud and tired. You came, he said. I bought the ticket. He smiled. Small. Real. Want to grab something to eat? Nothing fancy. Just us. We found a 24-hour diner near the stadium. Kayla excused herself early, saying she had an early flight. It was the first time Ethan and I had sat across from each other without a third party or a crisis in months. He ordered pancakes. I ordered eggs. Halfway through the meal, he set his fork down. I turned down a bigger offer from another club last week. They wanted me to be the face of their rebuild. More money, more spotlight. I said no. Told them I still had work to do on myself before I chased the spotlight again. Coach called me an idiot. Maybe I am. But I'd rather be a reliable starter who pays his own bills than a headline who needs his father to co-sign the lease. I took a sip of coffee. Smartest thing I've heard you say since you were 20. He laughed once, short and honest. Took long enough. We finished the meal. He paid. Outside in the parking lot, he stopped under a streetlight. Dad, I know the drawer at your place is full of letters and notebooks now. I'm not asking you to burn them or forgive everything tonight. I just want you to know the account is still open on my end, too. Whenever you're ready to add to it, or not, I'll still show up the same way. I looked at the young man standing in front of me. The same eyes, the same stubborn jaw, but the hunger in them was different now, hungrier for respect than for cash. I'm adding to it, I said quietly. One day at a time. No rush, no special treatment, just time. He nodded, eyes shining a little brighter than the streetlight should explain. Merry Christmas, Dad. Merry Christmas, Ethan. We shook hands. He walked toward the team bus. I walked toward my rental car. On the flight home the next morning, I opened the drawer in my mind one last time and imagined writing the final entry. December 2026. Son lifted a trophy he earned. Father sat in the stands he paid for himself. No wires, no drama. Just two men learning how to stand on their own feet and still see each other across the field. I closed the imaginary ledger and looked out the window at the clouds below. The man who had once been reduced to a walking ATM was gone. In his place was Richard Caldwell, 70 years old, retired, solvent, and finally completely free. I had set the boundaries. I had enforced them with documents, lawyers, and cold procedural calm. And in doing so, I had given my son the only gift that actually mattered. The chance to become a man who no longer needed his father's money to feel like one. The reclamation was finished. What remained was something quieter, slower, and infinitely more valuable. A life that belonged to me. And the slow, careful possibility that one day, maybe years from now, two men might sit across from each other again, not as debtor and creditor, not as ATM and user, but simply as father and son. Until then, the account stayed open. Deposits made only in choices. Interest earned only in time. And the balance? Finally, blessedly, mine to decide.